Today, I'm going to show you how I painted up around 1,000 points of Blood Angels from the new Horus Heresy Age of Darkness box in just 1 week. Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last couple of months, you'll know that the Horus Heresy, Games Workshop's pseudo-historical prequel to Warhammer 40,000, has just had a new edition launch. To mark the occasion, I wanted to do something special, so with my copy of the box on pre-order, I got to planning. I'm splitting the box with my long-suffering girlfriend, Meg, who is joining me on this journey into a brand new game system. How excited are you?
Pumped.
Pumped? Super pumped?
Super pumped.
I'll be playing my beloved Blood Angels, whereas Meg, what Legion have you decided to play?
Snaky boys.
Who are the Snaky Boys?
Alpha Legion.
Alpha Legion, yep. We'll each be taking half the box and it'll be painted up in our Legion's colour schemes. As the box doesn't have even points for both sides, the box art matchup is wildly unbalanced in favour of the Spartan just due to its sheer chonkiness. We'll be splitting the box down the middle and then leaving out those bigger models to use in games later down the line. We'll both be taking 20 Legionaries and 5 Terminators each, as well as a character to lead our forces. I'll be having the heroic power sword wielding Praetor, whereas the sneaky Alpha Legion will be taking the one with the large axe.
How did you say yours? Praetor.
Praetor, yeah.
What would mine actually be called?
Yours is a Praetor.
Oh, okay, fine.
Praetor with a power axe.
Guy with the big axe.
Guy with the big axe. What I've seen some people do is they convert it into a spear, which is quite cool. That's quite Alpha Legion.
Axe.
You want an axe? Not a big axe.
Chunky axe.
Noted. I'll be taking the Spartan and she'll be taking the Contempted Dreadnought to round out the forces. If you've picked up this box, are you splitting it with somebody, or are you using it as just the basis for your own Legion? Let me know down in the comments down below. This week I'm building up just about everything and then painting the Blood Angels. First off, let's open up the box. In here, we've got range rulers, blast markers and flamer templates, and then so many sprues. With the sprues out of the way come the dice, bases, and the massive rulebook clocking in at 334 pages. Also in here, and most importantly for right now, is the construction guides, and then we've also got some transfer sheets for the Imperial Fists and the Sons of Horus, but we won't be playing them as that'd be far too easy. You'd like to be playing Imperial Fists?
No.
Sons of Horus?
No.
No. Alpha Legion?
Yes.
Why do you like Alpha Legion?
Snaky boys.
Snaky boys.
Blue.
Blue.
Shiny blue.
Shiny blue.
Shiny blue.
Speaking of the construction guide, we also looked through the section of rules towards the end and decided on some options for our armies. So with all the planning and prep out of the way, let's tackle this mountain of plastic, shall we? I started out with my Praetor, who turned out to be exceedingly fiddly, particularly when it came to his leg details. But after a bit of effort, I managed to have him all assembled in sub-assemblies ready for priming and painting. Bolstered by my success, I decided to tackle the next unit, the Tactical Marines. 40 Space Marine Tactical Marines. Now, after my Tyranids combat patrol video, I thought 40 Marines, probably not a big deal, I'll get those cracked out in a couple of hours. Oh, how wrong I was. 5.5 hours it took to build this whole squad. I spent half an hour sticking together shoulder pads, just literally.
I'm trying to get you worked it out.
For half an hour. So to save you a bit of time, I'm going to give you some top tips. Tip number 1 is do not try and assemble them all in one session. Okay, spread it out over a week, 2 weeks, maybe several years, it will be better. Second, batch building. What I ended up doing was snipping out all the parts that will be common to all of the Marines. The backpacks, the shoulder pads, and the helmets. We'll be putting all of those on regardless of which Marines we decide to build. Once you've got all of these, trim off all of the flash to make sure they're ready to go on as soon as you've got your bodies ready. Next tip, there are 8 identical sprues of Marines in the box, so I'd recommend working on them row by row. That means first you take Marine number 1 from sprue number 1 and 2, etc. Then you do Marine number 2 from all of the sprues. I lined mine up partially for a satisfying time lapse, but also so that I could go through each of them in order so that I could get really good at building Marine body number 1 before then moving on to building all of the number 2s. In this way I got more efficient with each one until I ended up with each Marine assembled with torso, arms and legs. And then I put that skill away on a shelf and never used it again. Once again, do not try and do this all in one sitting. Now all of the sergeants have been built with plasma pistols and power swords, and for my fancy Blood Angels boys, I also added the transverse crests to their heads as well. Is it really Horus Heresy without Roman iconography? After this ordeal, blissfully, the Terminators were relatively easy to put together, so with all the infantry done for my side of the box, there was one final hurdle, and it was a big one, the Spartan. Now this thing took up about half of the sprues and 12 pages of the building guide, so I knew it was going to be a challenge. But given the choice between building 40 more tactical marines or another Spartan tank, I would take the Spartan in a heartbeat. Once I'd kind of got the idea of how the kit went together, it was all relatively straightforward. Though I did make it a little bit more difficult for myself by convincing myself that I was going to be leaving the hatch at the front open. I ended up sealing this shut just for aesthetic purposes, so I probably shouldn't have bothered building it in sub-assemblies. So after 11 hours of building, the wretches of humanity were ready to be reborn in the image of the great angel Sanguinius, which is a Horus Heresy way of saying that all the building is now done, so we're going to prime them white and paint them up. I primed everything with white primer, except for the tracks of the Spartan, which I primed with black. With everything primed, I'm going to demonstrate my painting method for these guys, and for this I'm going to be using the Terminators. I started with a base coat of equal parts Mephiston red, Rhinox hide, and black. This gave me a nice dark base coat which was going to sit in all the recesses on my infantry models. Next was a 50-50 mix of Mephiston red and Rhinox hide. I made sure to add this from the top down, in that way I wasn't accidentally adding this lighter paint into the recesses where I wanted the darker colour to stay. Next was the same process, but this time with pure Mephiston red and focused even more from the top down. I focused this mostly around places like the left shoulder, where I was imagining the light source above and to the right if you look at them front on. With that, I switched over to a brush and started by glazing Mephiston red onto those armour panels as mentioned previously. This helped to cover over some of the speckliness of the airbrush painting from before and also helped to boost the red colour of those armour panels. Continuing with glazing, I added on a 50-50 mix of Evil Sun Scarlet and Mephiston red, before then doing an even more select highlight with Evil Sun Scarlet. I also used this to edge highlight some key areas where the light would be catching, normally closest again to that left shoulder pad. Over the top of this and in the brightest areas, I also used a 50-50 mix of Uriel Yellow and Evil Sun Scarlet as a spot highlight. On the shoulder guard, I used this as a glaze once more, focused in the centre of the Evil Sun Scarlet area. While the Blood Angels Horus Heresy colours are more traditionally red and black, these guys were just screaming out for gold trim. I painted this with Retributor armour. Silver was next, with the lightning claws and metal details on the back getting a layer of Vallejo gunmetal. I also painstakingly applied this to each individual rivet, of which there are lots, across the bodies of the Cataphractii Terminators. I next painted black.
Very lovely Imperial compliant black
over all the tassels on the armour and also the palms of the lightning claws. I took care here to avoid the areas where I'd finished my red armour, being careful around those edges. This was then highlighted with Vallejo medium grey over the edges, to which I added a little bit of extra wraithbone to do a final spot highlight. I shaded down the gold with Reikland Flesh Shade and the silver with Nuln Oil. I then highlighted these back up using the Retributor armour again for the gold, but using Vallejo silver for the tips of the lightning claws. This lighter silver was also then added into the eye lenses of the Marines, and then once this was dry, I added a layer of Warpstone green. You could use any green paint thinned down for this. Try experimenting with things like Moot green if you're looking for a more vibrant, punchy green. And with that, the Terminator is all done. I followed a very similar principle with the troops and the Praetor, pushing the colour just a little bit lighter on the red with extra Evil Sun Scarlet, just to make the Terminator stand out a little bit and give them a bit more gravitas. With the infantry done, that just leaves the Spartan. For the base coat, I started with a very similar colour, this time just a 50-50 mix of black and Mephiston red, before highlighting up with pure Mephiston red. I turned down the pressure on my air compressor to get maximum control, and then went in nice and close, focusing on all the upward-facing armour panels where the light would catch. I then went in with a 50-50 mix of Evil Sun Scarlet and Mephiston red as before, and then finally with Evil Sun Scarlet just focused around the highest and most raised areas on the model. Now, is this method possible without an airbrush? Technically yes, but it's going to take you a very long time and a lot of patient glazing. If you are looking at doing a model like this Spartan, not using an airbrush, I'd recommend following this tutorial from Artist Opus on dry brushing large models, as you get a really cool effect. I've linked that video in the description down below underneath this video. The silver parts of the Spartan were all base coated using Vallejo gunmetal, which was then shaded over using Nuln oil. I then attempted to solve the jigsaw puzzle of putting the tracks onto the Spartan. Now, something I wasn't prepared for was the sheer size of the Spartan once it's all put together. It absolutely dwarfs anything else in my collection. And so there you have it. That's how I took to painting my 1,000 or so points of Blood Angels from the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness box. I'll be basing these guys in next week's video, where we'll also be focusing on painting up the Alpha Legion. So let's take a look at my Blood Angels, ready to do glorious battle in the name of Sanguinius and the Emperor on the battlefields of the 31st millennium. Thank you as always for watching. I've been so excited to get into Horus Heresy for the longest time, so I'm so glad that I was able to share it with everybody. This seemed like a really good time to jump in, so if you have enjoyed it, do consider hitting the subscribe button. I'll be doing lots more Horus Heresy videos in the future. If you do enjoy this kind of content, feel free to click the playlist, which will be appearing on the screen as we speak. It's got a load of other stuff that I've painted, Games Workshop, and other hobby-related projects. In the meantime, my name has been Ollie, this has been my hobby, and I'll see you next time. I said, can I just do building this week and then painting next week? You said, nah.
That'd be boring.
11 hours of building.
Who chose this?
You don't choose the plastic crack, Meg. The plastic crack chooses you.